Hello everyone and welcome to the Anime Zillia, and thank you for joining me as we discuss episode 13 of the God of High School anime series. And first off, I want to say that this episode was a improvement from the last week's. In my episode 12 review, I mentioned that I wasn't a big fan of episode 12. I didn't like the pacing or anything that really happened in it, but this was a positive in my opinion. There are a few things that I disliked and that confused me a little bit, but that being said, there were some positives, so let's explore the episode. So I want to start off by mentioning Mori awakening. Overall, I thought this was really well handled and really cool to watch. The animation was fantastic. The music in the background works so well in creating that different atmosphere that helped give the episode a fresh sort of feel and a fresh vibe. It helped make us feel, as an audience, different emotions and different kind of oohs and ahs in different positions. We get the iconic pose from the webtoon series of Mori reaching for the sky when doing his moves, and I just thought that scene in particular just looked stunning. Now, there was a problem that I had with the awakening sort of scene, and yes, you're going to go, he's a typical webtoon fanboy that hates name changes, and this is my issue. They changed some of the names to some things. Now, some name changes were good, and some name changes I thought were bad. Let me explain. When you have a source material like obviously the God of High School has in terms of its webtoon series, you're reading through all of those chapters, and when you're a reader like that, you get nostalgia and you get the iconic sort of names and move sort of titles. Say for example, if you read Dragon Ball Z, the manga, and then you watch the anime series, and the anime changed the Kamehameha to something completely different, then you too, as the reader of the manga of Dragon Ball, would be very confused and slightly annoyed because that nostalgia and that iconicness behind the move would just kind of be washed down a bit. It'll be diluted. And that's the kind of vibe and feeling I got from these name changes when looking at Mori's awakening moves. When the Yui came down from the sky, the staff that Mori uses, that's the name that the webtoon gave it. They call it Yuli. In the anime, they call it the Nyobu. And I understand, it means near enough the same sort of thing. But when I think of the Nyobu, I think of the power pole that Goku uses in Dragon Ball Z. And I understand why they changed some names. Sometimes they change it to make it easier to pronunciate, but this sort of change from Yui to Nyobu, I personally struggle with pronouncing Asian words. English as well sometimes. And I kind of feel like this change makes it harder to say. Nyobu is a harder word for me to say personally than to say the word Yui. But in the spirit of all things fair and, giving the anime a, thumbs up on something, one name change I thought was actually pretty good was the title that they give Mori godlike mode. In the anime, they call it Saint Tessai, which is a lot easier to pronunciate when looking at the webtoon counterpart name. But the only thing is, again, we lose that nostalgia feeling. We lose that kind of impact and that kind of iconicness behind it. But then again, like I said, this Mori transformation comes with a name in the webtoon version that's so hard to pronunciate, I'm just going to put it up on screen so you can kind of, try and pronounce it and read it yourself, because I'll butcher it horribly. But putting that to one side, let's talk about some more positives. One scene I really loved seeing was seeing the Monkey King surf on Yui. That sounds a little bit wrong, pause for a minute. But that scene there was awesome. The fight in general was very entertaining to watch, especially when it was up close and the combat was up close combat basically. I thought that when the anime does combat, hand-to-hand combat well, which it does most of the time, I absolutely love it. And another thing I thought was really great was foreshadowment. If you notice that in the flashback, Mori, in his godlike form, when he's looking at his past memories, has more items / clothing on that character. Meaning that for the character of Mori he still has more ways to power up when he moves through the series. This obviously will link to the fact that he hasn't gained all of his memories yet. So with those new memories coming back to him, thus we'll get more power-ups. And this is where we sort of see Mori, Jin, Dawe, Mira talking about going to visit this kind of entity that's inside Mori's kind of homeland and trying to unlock these memories. This scene of them talking about this, I really did appreciate, because this piece of knowledge, it gives the show a new focus and it tells us as the audience more plot direction, which is something that I find this series lacks at the minute. Like I said, one issue I have of the series in general is its pacing and its lack of direction. Last week, in episode 12, I was confused as to what was going on. If I was looking at it from fresh eyes and I did not know what happens in the webtoon version, I'd be going, so what's the end goal here really? What is it? But now we have a bit more direction. We have a place to go towards and something to work towards. That I do appreciate, and I'm hoping to see big things from that moving forward. I can't lie, God Tyke's form in this episode was really underwhelming. And from a logical point of view, I understand why they did this. But then again, the mode was actually really effective. Let me explain. So, in this form, he's meant to be in his strongest state possible. But the way they portray him and his character in this episode, his normal human form with borrowed power seems more of a threat than his actual god mode. But understand, this was all done to show how strong Mori Jin's new power really is. I mean, once he awoken to his power and he started using the Yui that crashed down, Marbone, the member of the Nox group, was extremely shocked. That look of shocked looked amazing, by the way, but at the same time, it showed just how kind of impactful this mode for Mori really is. And the fight itself, with Tyke's character being overwhelmed and pushed to the brink, I thought worked splendidly in showing that off. The focus here was on Mori. The focus was showing just how strong his character is and how like sort of unique and mysterious this form could be. And that worked well. Yes, he has some time to shine at the beginning, so I'm glad they did that and not just made it a complete whitewash. But at the same time, it was underutilized and underwhelming, but at the same time, very effective with doing what it was meant to do. Plus, Tyke got beaten so badly that his clothes disappeared. Yeah. Now, two things slightly confused me, and if you know the answer, of course, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Number one, Dawe being stabbed in the back and then being completely fine afterwards. Just seemed really weird to me. I mean, he had, you know, this sacrificial moment where he sacrificed himself to save Mira and Mori. And then, you know, the arrow disappears. He's perfectly fine. Yes, he could have used borrowed power, but we didn't see that, so we can't really put that down as an answer. That, to me, just seemed a little bit confusing. The other thing was Yilipo using his key-like powers, going into that fox sort of state that we see him in the Mori Jin fight, and in when he's fighting Tyke to begin with, after, you know, he gets really angry. But obviously he doesn't have the key inside him at this point. Tyke still has that. And he doesn't even have any fragments, because we now know that the fragments have been shattered and they've scattered across the sort of world. Bit like the 7 Dragon Balls already, but hey, Dragon Ball Z reference everywhere here. I personally did not think that he could use these powers since the key was removed. So seeing him use it at the end was a little bit of a shock to me, and it was just a little bit, left me scratching my head. So if you know the answer, it might just simply be yes he can, because he has the power like on the moves memorized or something. Let me know in the comments if you have an answer, or if you were confused yourself. However, with those confusing bits out of the way, let's talk about a new character and an act of selflessness that shows character development. That's right, we finally get to see the final member of the 6 in Kim. This character for me had her ups and she had her downs. I love her character in her childlike form, and her personality in this state overall was just fantastic. I love the fact that she's like a little aggressive kind of, you know, she thinks she knows everything, but she is quite old, so given the fact she has quite a lot of knowledge, but I just love the fact that she's just beating on this, on that like female character with the the yellow tracksuit. I don't know why, but that made me laugh a lot. However, the reason why I said she has her downsides is because in her adult form, I really don't like the voice that they chose to go with. I really just don't think it fits the character, personally. But then, when she's back into a childlike form, a chibi form, if you will, her personality makes her character really fun and enjoyable to watch. Plus, the voice becomes a bit more appealing when she's in that childlike state. And not to spoil too much for those who haven't read the webtoon version, she does stay in a small state for a while. So if you're like myself that prefers her in a small form in terms of the voice, then you're going to be kind of pleasantly surprised. Now, I mentioned about a selfless act that shows character development, and this comes from Mori Jin in showing that great selflessness in this episode, by using that one wish to help heal everyone that was hurt by the actions of Nox and Tyke, instead of just asking for his grandfather to be kind of put in front of them. Like, he literally could have done that. And speaking of, we saw Taijin in this episode, chained up and looking pretty banged up and in a bad state. Obviously, Nox are not treating him very nicely. Plus, we get that really weird line where he says, "Mori, you've grown strong, even strong enough to beat me." So, does that hint at a Mori versus Taijin fight later on? We'll have to wait and see. But the reason why I bring this up is because it helps kind of establish that Mori has this kind of respect for those around him, and he doesn't need to rely on his grandfather all the time, and that he can rely on his friends. This is one theme through Mori's character that they've been trying to push throughout the entire series. Mori needs to gain friends that he can trust and have their back and has his back. And he's managed to do that with Mira and Dawe, and Ilipo as well. So the fact that he turned around and made his wish based on something that would help everybody, including his friends, I thought was a nice selfless act and shows a bit of character development. Plus, Mori might not be thinking it, but, he probably could not have won this final fight on his own. So the wish shouldn't be just for one person. It should be something that benefits everybody. And bringing back the missing limbs from the characters that, of course, are linked to Ilipo and, his team, that was a really nice act, and it did put a smile on my face when seeing it. Again, it shows development from our main protagonist that I think works pretty nicely in this setting. Overall, a good episode with some great animation and music being the main highlight of the episode. And even the entire series, the animation and the music has been on point throughout the entirety. Overall, this series, I think, has been an okay series, with the pacing being a bit of an issue throughout, but the fights have been really entertaining, especially at the beginning of the series, when we're in the preliminary stages. I think my favourite fight of the series was Mori versus Dawe. I just loved the animation, I loved the build-up, I loved the kind of chemistry in that. I think that was great. Basically, the fights were brilliant before all the special godlike powers were introduced. Sometimes they can be a bit over the top and a little bit disinteresting at times. However, I want to hear your thoughts on this episode and the overall series in total, just in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts. If you agree or disagree with some of the points I've made in this video, then by all means, feel free to just let me know. Other than that though, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new so you never miss a video from me. More anime and more webtoon content coming soon. Other than that though, have a great day. Arigato, matane, goodbye.